What is up? It's Bob from Home Cooked Basics. Thanks for coming back today. So I got a great one for you today. It's beginner beef stew. So this beef stew is a really simple recipe. And I made it for beginners because I'm not doing anything weird like blanching the veggies or anything like that. I got an incredible chuck roast here. It's grass-fed beef. It's not really necessary to be grass-fed, but I really enjoy the grass-fed beef, so if you can get it, grab it. It really goes great. I'll show you how to cut up the chuck roast. If you can, do not buy like beef stew meat. It's not the same. A lot of times they'll throw in top sirloin or top round roast or something like that, and it's just not as good. So get yourself your own chuck roast. We're gonna cut that up, and we're just gonna jump right into this recipe. We have some Yukon Gold potatoes. I just quartered them. You don't really have to wash you do want to wash them, but you don't have to peel them. And then I got some carrots and celery. And you know what I'm really creating with this carrots and celery and this onion is a mirepoix. So a mirepoix goes, it's one of those French things. I think I said it right. But it goes in a lot of recipes, especially braises, and it's awesome in this stew. I have some tomato paste, which is key to bring out some flavor. We got garlic. Use as much garlic as you like. I did like 4 cloves here. We really like garlic, so I go a little heavy on it. Now obviously salt, gotta season. Seasoning is so important. We got black pepper. We got flour, and the flour is gonna be our thickening agent. So this flour is gonna thicken up our stew, which is really important. And we have a stock here. This is a beef stock. Personally, I like to have my own stock. I do a lot of chicken stock myself, but I don't do much beef stock. I got a recipe coming up soon that I want to do a beef stock, so I can show you guys how to make it. I really don't like store-bought, but I got a chicken stock that's killer, or broth, and you're gonna love it. I'm gonna have a video for that soon. And then you want an oil, a good oil that can handle high heat. So I use olive oil a lot. So I use usually either olive oil or I use avocado oil because they both can handle high heat. And we got some red wine. So we're gonna put a little bit of red wine in there. It's gonna add great flavor. I think there's, I don't know, maybe 1 glass left here, maybe a little more. And that's gonna go in the stew. All right, we're gonna grab this beef, throw her on here. They tied this at the store. Figuring we're gonna use it for a roast. So you gotta get that string off. Try not to cut yourself. So one thing you wanna look for is you can see all this connective tissue. And some of this is just gonna be too much for when you're on your stew. So the fat is good. You want the fat. The fat's all in here. That marbling is the fat. So fat is good, silver skin's not. And then you're gonna make, I like decent sized chunks. So you're looking at a couple inch piece, not a 1 inch piece. That way you got something a little bit hefty in your stew. Looking for chunks about like this. Then go ahead, cut up all the meat. All right, so now that we got it all cut up into like 1.5 inch cubes, I like to go ahead and salt it. So I use a nice kosher salt. You really want to salt it liberally. I wash my hands after I cut it up so I can keep dipping in my, double dipping into my salt. This is one of probably the biggest mistakes with new cooks is you forget to really salt your steak and liberally salt everything. It's really important in cooking. It enhances the flavor of whatever you're making. Salt is your friend. You stop eating preservatives and start creating your own food. You're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel more healthy. So that's it, beef's done, veggies are prepped. Now we're gonna go ahead and cook it on the stove. We're gonna brown the beef first. And I do it a little bit differently. I don't do it in the only pot that I'm gonna cook it in. I cook it in another one so I can fit a little more, put them into the other pot and kind of work out of one and put it into the final stew pot, which I'm using a Dutch oven, and that's when it's going to cook low and slow. So let's get over there. All right, so now we're going to focus on browning the beef. And I like to do this in 2 stages. So I have my main pot that I'm going to cook the stew in, but I'm getting a saute pan hot. This is important. You want to get that pan hot. Then you're just going to add the oil. And what you're looking for is that shimmer. See how quickly it's moving now? So I'm on about a medium heat. And that oil is moving around really fast. Why this is so important is you don't want to put cold beef in a colder pan that's going to just absorb that oil and it's not going to brown and cook it real quick. So what I'm looking for is to watch that shimmer, which I can start to see that shimmer in the light there. But the other important thing is I'm not smoking it. I don't want to smoke my oil. And using a high heat oil, like a good extra virgin will get you there, or an avocado oil. Start with 1 piece here. And you can hear that, and that's telling me it's fine. So now we're gonna put this beef in here. I'm gonna spread it around. I don't wanna be all stacked on top of each other. This is probably gonna have to be done in 2 batches. Have some separation between your pieces. This is gonna let the moisture release from the beef. It's gonna help it brown. So that's about it. That's about as full as I can go. So I'm gonna brown this beef first. We're gonna transfer it into the pot. We're gonna do the rest of the beef and then we'll keep cooking. All right, now that that side's nice and brown, some of these bigger ones are all set. I'm just gonna throw them in our pot. Right now, some of that fat is rendering in this pan. So we just want to make sure we're not burning it, not too hot, but you're still browning. There's plenty of heat here. All this coming off is not smoke, it's actually steam, which we're trying to get some of that moisture out of here and just brown. That's why they're separated. When they're separated, it allows that moisture to get off so they're not like just kind of steaming in there. Moisture. So these all look pretty good. I'm going to pull these off. Now always take a look at your pan. If it's getting too hot, like right now I'm starting to smoke, just pulling it off the heat for a minute. It's just a little bit too hot. I could turn the heat down, but the worst thing you can do is have a pan that's not hot enough. But you also don't want to burn up your pan. So no matter what anyone says, browning does not seal in the juices. That's not what it does. It's creating the Maillard reaction, so that browning is actually adding some flavor. All right, so we're keeping all that. We got that beef fat down in there, still rendered. We don't want to get rid of that. So that's flavor, right? So while this is still going, we're going to add our onions. I'm going to saute these around a bit. If we add some salt. That's the thing, you want to salt at all the stages if you can, depending on what you're cooking. So as long as you're not putting something in there that's super salty, like a Parmesan cheese or something like that, you're gonna want to salt in between stages here. And nothing like the smell of onions and garlic. You can see the pan starting to brown on there. That's what you call fond. That's got a great amount of flavor too. Keep an eye on it, you don't want it to burn. These onions are looking pretty good. They got some color to them. Getting a little more translucent. They're still gonna cook in the sauce. In the stew. So that's good for me. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the tomato paste, because I want to brown this tomato paste. I'm gonna throw that in there. And you want to get this moving too, and you want this to brown on the bottom. But this is really critical to watch this, because this will burn fast. So you want to get it around because you want to cook this paste, but you don't want it to burn. Before you get to that burn stage, go ahead and add your garlic. The garlic, we're looking just for that nice smell. Once it starts to really release that smell, then you're done with the garlic. You don't want to burn it. It's really important not to burn the garlic. So we're gonna keep it moving. Watch that bottom of that pan. You don't want to be burning that color there. So it's just about the right color. Now we're almost there. Now I want to deglaze this pan. I want to make sure I don't burn the bottom there. So I'm going to add some wine. Not all of it, just enough to deglaze the bottom there. As you can see, now it's just coming right off the bottom. Then I just grab and pour some of the beef stock in here. Not all of it, I wait for the end to put it in the big pot. So I grab myself a whisk and the flour, and I'm gonna put it in and just kind of whisk it in that sauce. Trying to get it incorporated as much as possible because I don't want it to be all clumpy later in the stew. So keep moving it around. You can already see it's starting to thicken. The reason I'm adding this now is you really don't want to have raw flour. It's really important to cook it because our guts can't stand raw flour. Before we get to that sticking point, I'm going to take it off and add it to our big pot. I'm going to get this up to temperature. I'm going to add the rest of my wine. And then I'm going to add the rest of that beef broth. And now I like to bring this back up to a boil. I don't add my vegetables yet because if we added those now into this stew, they're just going to mush away and be nothing. So we're going to, in the last about half hour, we're going to add them there once we know that the beef's really close and tender. So I like to keep it uncovered for a little bit, bring it up to that boil, see how it's going, see how it's thickening, and then I'm going to close the lid, put it on a low temperature, like almost like a simmer, and let it go for about an hour and then check on it. Get them in there, give them a good mix. And actually at this stage, I like to add some ground pepper. And then what you're probably not gonna see, and I'm not gonna include in this part of the video, is I'm gonna season it. So I'm gonna let this cook for another half hour, 40 minutes. Check the carrots, check the potatoes. Make sure you can slide a fork in them pretty easily. Check the beef. At that point, the beef should be pretty well tender and ready to go. And at that time, when I know I'm at the end, I'm gonna check it for salt. I'm gonna add some salt to it, taste it, and just keep adding salt until it gets to the right taste, and you'll know. You'll know before it's too salty, and this way, you don't over-salt it in the beginning, and you can flavor it right at the end for that perfect beef stew flavor. All right, we're gonna scoop some of this in there. Man, look at that meat. Covered in that delicious sauce. Get some carrots in there. And then to bring it to the next level, I got this little baguette. Remember we talked about that fat is the flavor. All right, so all we gotta do is get in there, get a piece of this tender meat, a little bit of carrot and potato. Oh man, that is so good. That is a game changer. The sauce is perfect. That beef is tender. That wine sauce, just enough salt. I might add a little bit of pepper to mine. I like it a little more spicy. But the carrots aren't mush. Everything is still good and intact, and it's really good. Guys, if you like this video, please subscribe down below. I appreciate it. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions about it. And the bread is key. You got that butter. Dip it in some of that sauce. Oh man. That is so good. So that's it, a beginner beef stew. I hope you see how easy and simple this was. I had to actually have it go a little bit longer to get that stew meat a little bit more tender. It's kind of a balance, right? So you gotta make sure your vegetables don't overcook and become mush, and your stew beef gets tender. So guys, thanks again for watching, and check out this video, 7 mistakes beginner cooks make. It's really gonna help your cooking game. Watch that video and let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll see you next time on Home Cook Basics.